Hello everyone and welcome to Drop the Gloves with Wichita Thunder head coach Malcolm Cameron. Drop the Gloves is a weekly program where you, the fans, get to ask your questions about the Thunder or hockey or sports in general, and you receive straight answers from the Wichita coach. In this week's episode, the coach discusses team updates with us. He talks about giving second chances to a player, and the coach gives us his NFL prediction. So let's get right to Drop the Gloves. So let's welcome back Coach Cameron this week. Coach, let's first of all begin with your team updates for us.
Gabriel Gagne came down from Binghamton Monday afternoon, so he'll play tomorrow night. And we got Ryan Rupert over the weekend, who's an NHL contract as well from Ottawa. He missed about a month's time due to an injury in Binghamton, so he's just kind of working his way back into shape. But I thought he played really, really well his first game, and was a little winded in the back-to-back one on Sunday. But I think he's going to be a real good addition to the team.
Well, let's talk about this last weekend. You put together the line of Ian Lowe, Ryan T-Sink, and Jared Grant. They produce 8 points for you right off. Is this a line you're seeing is going to stay together now?
Absolutely. They've actually been our best line for about 3 or 4 games here. So it was great to see them get rewarded with some goals. But more impressive is they're doing a good job of shutting down the other team's top lines and being real tough to play against. So that's an untouchable group right now.
You scored 6 goals against Tulsa, a pretty tough team to score against. Do you feel like you're kind of getting out of the rut your offense was having?
Yeah, I honestly, I think we should have won both games. We were back and forth on the Saturday night game, and unfortunately a rookie mistake with 1:47 to go by a young first-year defenseman trying to do too much, which is what happens when you get into losing streaks. It happens when you get in winning streaks, too. Guys tried to do way too much out there, and that usually, when you go from winning games and all of a sudden guys are trying to be too fancy or too this or too that, those lead to losing streaks. And unfortunately, we gave one up with under 2 minutes to go in the game, and that cost us. I thought we played really well again on Sunday. We scored actually a goal with 7 minutes to go in the game that they disallowed because they thought Nathan Moon's stick was above the bar, but on video review it was actually the Tulsa players that was. The referee had a bad angle of the situation and mistake the Tulsa player's stick for our stick, so it was a good goal. But that just seems to be the luck. But I like the way we played. We're really simplifying things right now. The defense are just focused on D, and the forwards are just focusing on offense. We had a lot of bad luck, on a 4-on-3 penalty kill. Our player does a great job of blocking the shot, and it goes right off his pants to the one guy that's all by himself, and goes in the back of the net. And, I think our goaltender would probably want a couple of them back too on Sunday, but I really liked our resolve, and the spirit around the team right now is good. So I think we're ready to come out of this and start moving forward.
You've talked about in previous shows about looking to make some changes with the team. You trade away Martin Nemsick and Logan Nelson. Are you at a point where you're wanting to kind of assess where you're at, or are you still looking to make moves?
Well, I mean, if it can improve our hockey club without upsetting, the locker room, then that's certainly something we would do. But at the end of the day, you don't want to make too many moves because it just upsets chemistry. But those were 2 that I felt were necessary. Just maybe, a change of scenery because they were on the team last year and things just weren't working out as expected this year. And it was unfortunate, but we're moving forward.
12 games left in this month, a lot of games to play. What are you looking for out of your team in this time?
Obviously to win some games, and I think if we just put our work boots on and we play with a little bit more intensity, maybe a little more finish around the net, we'll be fine.
Well, let's head to our fan questions this week. We first of all begin with Dave from Mays. He says, early on, the special teams were unbelievable. They have really not played as well lately. What do you do to change that?
Well, a lot of it is just kind of sticking with some guys. Unfortunately, like at the beginning of the year when we had Rodwell, Krushelnyski, Rumble, we had a couple of weeks to practice with a couple of, with 2 power play units that were set in stone, and they developed some chemistry. And then the call-ups start to happen. You lose Rodwald, you lose Krushelnyski, you lose Rumble. That's 60% of your top unit at the power play. So now you're asking other guys to step in. And then we had a couple of injuries. Vince Arsenault was on the power play unit. Then he misses 7-8 weeks of the season. Gabriel Gagne's on your power play, and then all of a sudden he's been up now for 32 days in a call-up. So Nick Trecapelli was on the power play, and he got hurt, and so on and so forth. So, it's about getting some quality practice time and, and kind of building some chemistry within your power play units. And a lot of those said guys that I just mentioned were also on our penalty kill unit. So I think it's just a matter of getting back to the basics. And when your power play is struggling, it's just about getting shots and getting to the net. And penalty kill is just about maybe a little bit more details.
I think you've talked too about a lot of times we've seen kind of some fluky goals on the penalty killing too, like you talked about off the pants. Like I think a player took a shot that hit off Martin Nensik's leg a couple of weeks ago. So those flukes kind of go against you as well.
Yeah, they do. I mean, that's just the way the hockey gods work sometimes. When things are going the wrong way for you or going sideways, you just get some bad luck. And that happened over the past week as well, where we just and your goaltender has to be your best penalty kill, and I think our goaltenders would say that they haven't been at their best, but I know they're ready to come out of it too.
Next up, we have Jeannie from Wichita. She says, do you think you were the kind of coach that you would have liked to have played for when you were a player?
I think so. I think the one thing about coaching that has changed from when I played was coaches didn't really have relationships with their players. It was you come to the rink and you'd see your coach in the ice, or if he ever invited you into his office, which was extremely rare, that was really your relationship with him. But I try and talk to the players every single day, and I try and have one-on-one conversations with at least 3 to 4 every day in my office, just see how they're doing and talk to them about how I think they're doing and so on and so forth. So I think it's more about building that relationship. Players won't always agree with everything that you do every day because they have to look out for their own self-interest. But I think as long as you have open dialogue with them and you tell them bad news and you don't try and bluff them or lie to them and things like that, I think you can build a good respect.
Next up, we have Tim from Wichita. He says, I watched a video on YouTube where Arsenault and Grant were fighting against each other a few years ago. Isn't it hard for these guys to put that kind of stuff aside and embrace each other as teammates now?
Not at all. That's the great thing about hockey is you leave it on the ice. And, a friend of mine who's the head coach of the Colorado Avalanche, Jared Bednar, and I were roommates when we played our first year pro together, and we used to get into it all the time on the ice. But when it was over, it was over. Your friends and your teammates, and I think actually guys talk about that stuff all the time, guys that maybe fought each other in junior or in different pro cities and different things like that. I think actually that connection kind of brings guys together.
That's interesting. Next up, Sean from Benton asks, I guess I don't understand what interference is. It seems like some player is in the way of another all game long, so what makes interference something different?
Well, the literal term is you're interfering with a player getting to a puck without actually playing the puck. So if I'm going after the puck and you impede my progress of going after that puck without you trying to go for it yourself, that is interference. So is it always called? No. Is it always called correctly? No. But that's the literal term of what interference is supposed to be.
Would it be like if you're going for the puck and I'm trying to obstruct you, if I'm kind of face up with you, would that more likely
get more or less, because then you're not going for the puck because you're not skating backwards for it, right? So it's kind of like blocking on the line in football. You're not allowed to do that.
Okay. Let's see. Pat from Wichita says, I found it refreshing of your discussion of player conduct and what you expect of your players. I would think it is difficult to know the character of a player when you are looking to sign someone. Is there a way that you can tell if they are a good fit for your locker room?
Yeah, I mean, you do your homework on players for sure, and you want to know about, are they good soldiers in the community? Do they have good off-ice habits? Are they people that like to go out the night before games and all those things? So you try and do as much research on players as you possibly can. You rely upon your contacts and your resources to give you honest truths. A lot of people don't like to talk negatively about their former players that are maybe leaving college or junior. So you don't always get the exact correct goods on players, but as far as we're concerned here in Wichita, players have to be organization players first and foremost, as opposed to themselves, and they have to live by a certain code and set of rules, and if they don't abide by it, they won't be here.
Because you have such a good relationship with your players, I know you hear about certain coaches that like to go out on a limb for some guy. They thought the situation they were in was bad before or whatever it may be. How do you decide that kind of thing when the reputation may be bad?
Well, it all depends on what it is, right? I mean, I do believe in giving second chances, but in terms of, maybe criminal conduct or things of that nature, I wouldn't take a chance on a player that way. But maybe if it was somebody who, was maybe a little bit immature but has grown up a little bit now, maybe was a little bit selfish, you can work with people like that as long as they got a good heart.
Pat also would like to know, I like your discussion on how fighting can actually make the game safer because there is so much emotion in games. Can you teach players to act responsibly with that emotion?
Well, that all comes down to mental toughness, I like to say I like my players to play on the line but not over the line emotionally, because if you get too emotional into the game, you're going to end up running yourself out of position. You're going to end up getting extra penalties because you're going out of your way to try and make a point to somebody on the ice, and those things are all detrimental to your team.
Kelly from Winnipeg would like to know, who do you like in the World Junior Championships?
Canada, for sure.
I would hope you would say that.
Yep.
Trent asks if I was watching on SportsCenter that some hockey insiders don't like the NHL being in warm weather cities like Phoenix, Tampa, and now Las Vegas. They even think the league should go back to 24 teams at most. Am I wrong, or does that just sound stupid?
Well, I mean, I think Tampa is a model place for hockey. I live 2 hours south of Tampa, so my son has played a lot of minor hockey in Tampa. They've done a great job with their grassroots programs. There's rinks all over the city now, and obviously they've won a cup and have been successful. So they do a real good job with their branding. And there's a lot of Northerners down in Florida and places like Phoenix. In Las Vegas, I'm not sure. I know they had a real successful team in the ECHL for a number of years before a lease problem, but I think the quality of hockey for sure would go up with less teams. But you got to look at it now. This game is global. I mean, there's players that are coming from, Andrzej Kopitar's coming from Slovenia. A lot of people don't even know where that is, myself included. So there's just so many more people playing the game. The United States has done a great job growing its game. You got players playing from Southern California. There's players, Jason Zucker from the Minnesota Wild is from Las Vegas. So I think the talent pool is expanded to allow for 31 teams now.
Ben from Wichita says, since you mentioned that your sons play hockey, how good are they?
I think they're pretty good. I mean, my oldest boy is a 15-year-old player playing in a U18 league.
Wow.
So he's in the youngest age group, 15, 16, 17, and he's holding his own. I mean, he's paying his dues, and he's certainly not the top player on the team or anything like that, but he's certainly competitive for his age group within that 15 to 18-year-old. So, and then my youngest son is actually the youngest player in the league. He's got a December 30th birthday, so he's almost, only 2 days away from playing at a lower age group. And he's having a good season. He's one of the top players on his team, playing against kids almost 2 years older.
Wow, that's pretty cool. David says, Coach Cameron, baseball season is right around the corner, and I am dreading it. The parents ruin it by getting crazy about everything that goes on during games. Do you have suggestions for kids on what they can say to their parents to make the games more fun?
Well, I think you just got to let kids be kids and don't put too much stress on them, whether it's hockey or basketball or football or whatever it is. Just make sure that it's improving each and every day and being a good teammate to me, which is the things I want my kids to get out of playing youth sports. I think if you put pressure on them, they got to have X amount of home runs or X amount of errors in a season or strikeouts or whatever it is. That's a lot of pressure for kids, and then they don't perform, and then they become selfish and not good teammates.
I think the parents get a little out of control with their enthusiasm sometimes.
They do, yeah, and just let them be. Just let them be kids. They only get a chance to be kids once.
Absolutely. Well, we're going to find out about your football predictions for us. First of all, Chiefs fan asks, Coach, do you think Andy Reid has the Chiefs prepared for a run to the Super Bowl?
I don't know about the Super Bowl, but I think he's a real good coach, and I think he has the respect of his players. So, you can only prepare your team so much, and then it comes down to the players that play the game. And it's the same with hockey. I mean, my job is to prepare them for tomorrow night for what Cincinnati's going to throw at us, and to put a lineup together that I think can beat Cincinnati, and then it's the player's job to execute it. So I think Andy Reid will do a good job preparing for his games. It's the player's job now to execute it.
Lee from Andover says, you mentioned you were a football fan, so do you have a Super Bowl prediction for us?
I really don't. I mean, at the end of the day, I mean, the Patriots are the Patriots. You know, they're the champs until somebody knocks them off.
Tough to beat for sure. Our last question comes from Derek from McConnell Air Force Base. He says, Coach, I have to admit that I'm a bit insulted by professional players protesting during the national anthem. I am in the Air Force and my friends say I serve to defend their rights to do so. Shouldn't they honor me and those who defend this country by honoring the anthem?
Well, I'll give you my opinion on it. I'm not saying that it's right or that it's wrong, and I believe that part of being either being a Canadian or an American is that you have rights and choices that people fought for our freedoms for us to have. So it's tough to make people do anything when they have freedom, but I would always stand up for the national anthem. And if you ever watch me on the bench, even though I'm only a permanent resident of the United States and not a citizen, I stand there very proudly to be living in this country and what it's provided both me and my family. So whether I'm in Canada or the United States, I stand up very proudly and certainly very appreciative of the people who fought for these freedoms.
It's awesome. Thanks for joining us this week, Coach.
Anytime. Thank you.
We want to thank Coach Cameron for joining us on Drop the Gloves this week. If you have your own questions you'd like to ask the Wichita Thunder coach, please send them to us at malcolmcameron@minorleaguesportsreport.com. That's malcolmcameron@minorleaguesportsreport.com. Please have your questions to us by Monday evening so we can give the coach a little time to review them before we record the show. I'm Rob Paneer, the managing editor of the Minor League Sports Report, and we'll see you next